My book, Everything Happens for a Reason and Other Lies I've Loved, is my, it's kind of my attempt to get real about my situation. A couple years ago, I was diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer, and that just took my life apart. It was also intellectually confusing because at the time I had just finished writing the first history of the idea that good things are supposed to happen to good people. And I'm a historian and I love to get to the bottom of things. So when this happened to me, I thought, wait, why am I so surprised? I thought that I was this sophisticated observer of other people's ideas about this. So I wrote this memoir to try to get real about what I thought I could expect from my life and how to make sense of my suffering and other people's suffering. Part of why I wrote the book was I'm completely confused by how people approach someone like me who has a bad diagnosis. I think I didn't realize what it feels like to be a problem to be solved in American culture. So when people meet me, I get the same questions every time. The religious, well, this is obviously a test and God's never going to give you anything you can't handle. Or to the more just kind of generally self-righteous, which is, maybe it was something you ate or drank. I mean, all these attempts to suss out why me, not them. And I realized that I was really stuck when it came to how to respond. Because all I wanted to say was, 2 seconds ago, I was just like you. So why is it so surprising that people are on the losing side of life? So I wrote this book to try to make sense of this American obsession with success and upward mobility and just try to figure out why suffering made me feel like such a loser. I think I discovered different things about my faith. I think maybe, and also just because I'm a historian who works at a divinity school and I teach pastors, and it seems like I'm supposed to be an expert in religious certainties. And it turns out that I'm not that at all. I think what was so beautiful about actually being sick at a divinity school was it gave me language and people who were there to make space, mostly for my doubts and my struggles. So, like the second everything came apart, I didn't really have a good reason why it was me, why it should happen, and what it meant, other than that sometimes our bodies make mistakes and that suddenly I had a terrible situation at 35. And so having a faith community was amazing because it fed my family for over a year. We got like 2,000 medium to good casseroles, mostly. And also just gave me more language to say, I know what it means to love God, but I actually don't have a lot of language for what it means to trust God. Like trust God to do what? I don't really know. But I do know what it feels like to have all kinds of people around me step in love, and that fills in all kinds of gaps. My life is weirder, but richer, I think, than it was actually even before my diagnosis, because I sort of had to make a choice almost right away about what I would do with my time. Partly because I've got such a weird illness and the treatment is such that like I can't really know what's going to happen. Things are looking really good right now, but it's always uncertain. And so I have to give myself jobs that help me decide every day, do I live like I'm going to die, or do I live like I will be a really cantankerous 80-year-old? And so I just decided that I'm going to do whatever I can to best express my gifts, and maybe that's the better way to live anyway. So I kind of just go for it, even though that means I'm a little busier than I'd like to be. I think the book I still feel hooked on right now is Paul Kalanithe's When Breath Becomes Air. I love that book for a lot of reasons. One is that he was kind of in a similar situation in which he had a difficult diagnosis at an early age while he was a doctor, and he had to pay in a lot into a system, a medical profession that he didn't get to see the fruits of. But the way he made his choices about living really impacted me because they had a no matter whatness quality to it. Like in the discussion in the book of he and his wife's decision to have a child. And he said, his wife said, I'm worried that if we have a baby that it'll make dying harder. And then he said, wouldn't it be great if it did? And I think that's such a great philosophy for like living in a super gutsy way with a no matter whatness. I don't think I thought a lot about death and dying before I got sick. I think in part because I assumed that I would live forever. And partly I started a job which is run by the gerontocracy. So like everybody in my profession is at like a 70 to 80 plus category, and those are the stars. And partly because their brains are incredible by the time you get to that stage, but I really thought and banked on living forever. And so having to work backwards and think through what does it mean to live beautifully and meaningfully without an expectation of a very long life. And I didn't realize how many people were living with a similar situation. That, I mean, so many Americans have disabilities and limitations of some variety, and that a lot of us are just struggling with what does it mean if longevity isn't always the goal. So just trying to make better decisions about living beautifully, and not just in the present, but with the purpose of living forward into a future we can't know.